The house didn't scream, it whispered. A decaying structure on the edge of nowhere, its sagging porch and blacked-out windows looked more like a place left behind by time than by men. The wood, long rotten, flaked beneath the boots of the forensics team. The air smelled of old rot, mold, and something sour that didn't belong. Detective Caleb Hart lit a cigarette with hands that hadn't stopped shaking since the call came through. 5 bodies, the uniform had said. Maybe more. All women. All old cases. Inside, it was darker than it should have been. The boarded windows let in only slivers of light, and the weak beam of Caleb's flashlight danced over peeling wallpaper and furniture thick with dust. The living room was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that feels like it's listening. But the basement, that was where the horror started. The steps groaned under Caleb's weight. His partner, rookie detective Mia Rojas, followed close behind. She was trying not to breathe too loud. The basement was cold. Too cold. The kind of cold that soaked into your bones and stayed there. The kind of cold that knew death. They found the remains lined up against the far wall. 5 women. Or what was left of them. Wrapped in yellowed bed sheets. Each labeled with a faded piece of masking tape, Alice. Beth. Claire. Donna. Eve. Caleb crouched beside one of the bundles and peeled back the sheet. The skull had been cleaned. Not by time, but by hand, meticulous, almost loving. Teeth polished. Hair braided and tied with ribbon. There were no eyes. The smell hit him like a wall. Jesus Christ, Mia choked behind him. Don't throw up here, Caleb muttered. Not on them. On the far end of the room, a metal table stood with tools still lying in place, bone saw, scalpel, rib spreader. All clean. All shining. Recently used. No dust. Someone had been here. Maybe still was. The house had been off the grid for 23 years. No taxes paid. No power. No mail. Technically, it didn't exist. But someone had been there. Recently. Back at the station, Caleb leaned over the property records with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. House was purchased at county auction in '99, said Mia, skimming the digital files. Buyer was a John A. Burroughs. No relatives listed. Paid cash. And then, nothing. No taxes, no contact, Caleb murmured. Ghost? Not quite, said Mia. He was arrested. Twice. Both sealed. Juvenile charges. No adult convictions. Can we open them? Mia smirked. Already requested. But there's something else, one of the victims. Beth. That name's in the system. Caleb looked up. She was a missing person from 2005. Bethany Greer. Disappeared walking home from college. Case went cold. Her mom filed a dozen complaints about the investigation going nowhere. Said the cops didn't care. Caleb stood slowly. Let's go talk to her. The Greer house sat on the edge of the east side, quiet, poor, but proud. Mrs. Greer answered the door with a stare that could cut glass. I told you people everything I knew. 20 years ago. Caleb nodded gently. And we're sorry for that. But we think we found her. The woman didn't react. She stood frozen, hands still on the doorframe. We believe Bethany is one of 5 victims recovered yesterday. We need to confirm identity. Dental. DNA. But the ribbon in her hair, it was blue. Just like the one you described in your report. Mrs. Greer didn't cry. She exhaled. Then nodded once and stepped back into the dark hallway without a word. At the morgue, Dr. Lenz was waiting with a grim face. All 5 skulls show post-mortem cleaning. Not time decay, surgical precision. We also found traces of chloroform in the bone marrow. So he drugged them first? Mia asked. Possibly. There are wrist fractures. Signs of restraints. But no bruising, no struggle. Whatever happened, he kept them quiet. Caleb's stomach tightened. Trophies? More than that, Len said. He preserved them. Cherished them. Like art. And the killer? Mia pressed. Lenz hesitated. He knew what he was doing. Very clinical. Very patient. And he had time. The breakthrough came 3 hours later. Got something, a uniformed officer called from records. That name, Burroughs? There's an old interview transcript from a group home in '89. The social worker flagged him for obsessive behavior. Said he collected dead birds and dissected them. Christ, Caleb muttered. And get this, the officer added. The home burned down a year later. No survivors. Officially. Caleb looked at Mia. Her face was pale. What if he didn't die? You think he survived the fire? Mia asked as they drove down I-81, the rain turning the windshield into a vibrating blur. I think someone did, Caleb muttered. And I think we never really closed that place down. The group home, St. Mary's Haven, was just ash and weeds now. Burned to the bones in 1990. All residents presumed dead. But a name came up in the archives, Eleanor Prentice, night nurse. Retired. Never interviewed. No one thought she made it out. She had. She just never told anyone. Eleanor lived in a crumbling duplex with yellow siding and chain locks on every door. She opened slowly, cautiously, as if expecting someone worse than police. I'm not going to jail for surviving, she whispered. You're not under arrest, Caleb said gently. We just want to know about John Burroughs. Eleanor trembled. Her eyes were gray and deep, like she hadn't blinked in decades. Johnny wasn't right, she said. Quiet. Always quiet. But when he smiled, it was like watching a wolf pretend to be a child. Caleb leaned forward. What happened the night of the fire? Eleanor looked down. Her hands shook. I saw him. I know it was him. He walked out the front door while the flames were still rising. He was smiling. And he had something wrapped in a towel. I think it was a head. She began to cry. I told them. I told the police. They said I was in shock. That it wasn't possible. Back at the station, the call came at 2:47 a.m. Another body. Fresh. Female, mid-30s. Strangled. Eyes removed post-mortem. Ribbons braided into her hair. Mia stood frozen by the whiteboard when Caleb entered the room. He's back, she said quietly. Or he never stopped. The scene was a motel outside town, room 14. Cheap, no cameras. The clerk had seen nothing. But inside, the signature was clear. The same method. The same details. Only this time, something new. A message, scrawled on the bathroom mirror in the victim's blood. You stopped looking. So I kept going. Caleb stared at the words. His hands began to shake again. Captain Delaney wasn't impressed. You want to reopen 13 cold cases because of one dead woman in a motel? Caleb didn't flinch. Because it's not one. It's 6. And he's not done. Delaney crossed his arms. You're chasing ghosts, Hart. No prints. No witnesses. No goddamn DNA. What do you really have? Caleb stared him down. A killer who's been working under our noses for 20 years. And if we don't act now, we'll be unzipping another body bag by the weekend. Silence. Then, you get 72 hours. After that, I pull you both. Back in the bullpen, Mia had a dozen files open. These aren't just random women, she said. Look. She pulled up photos, all 5 victims from the house and the new one from the motel. Different ages. Different backgrounds. But every one of them, she continued, was reported missing after attending a church-sponsored support group. Hope in Recovery. Same program. Same church. Different towns. Caleb leaned in. The church is the constant. Bingo. It's called Living Waters Fellowship. They ran the group from 1998 to 2012. Shut down after a financial scandal. Guess who was on staff during that time? She turned her screen. John A. Burroughs, custodian. They drove to the church, now a hollow building with stained glass windows coated in grime. Inside, dust clung to the pews like ash. They found the office records in the basement, half-burned, water-damaged, but legible. One stood out, Incident Report, 2004. A volunteer named Donna LeClaire filed a complaint against Burroughs for inappropriate comments. The note was dismissed. Donna went missing 6 months later. The address on Burroughs' employment record was fake, a lot number in a trailer park that burned down a decade ago. But a neighbor remembered him. Kept to himself, she said. Never talked much. Always carried a red duffel. Left before sunrise. Came back after dark. Never once saw him smile. Mia asked one final question. Do you remember where he went? The woman hesitated. Only once I saw. He was walking into the woods. Same trail every time. They followed the trail for 40 minutes before they found it. A shack. Handmade. Remote. Camouflaged under moss and leaves. Inside. Ropes. Locks. A cot with restraints. Shelves with jars of things. And in the center, a wall covered in photos. Photos of women. All posed. All with hair braided and ribbons tied. And one photo pinned higher than the rest. Mia. They pulled Mia from the field immediately. I'm not quitting, she snapped, shoving a go bag into the back of an unmarked cruiser. You're not quitting, Caleb said. You're surviving. We need you alive. She didn't argue after that. Back at the station, Caleb pored through sealed juvenile files with a level of desperation he hadn't felt since his brother's overdose in 2013. One file was labeled Burroughs, J.A., heavily redacted. Inside, multiple removals from foster homes. Obsessive behaviors, animal dissection, religious delusions. Psychiatric evaluation at age 14. Presents as polite, intelligent, cooperative. Empathy response absent. Highly manipulative. Exhibits signs of organized sadism. But something caught Caleb's eye, a report from June 1989. Burroughs had been placed in temporary custody at St. Luke's Youth Center for 2 months. That's where Caleb had been. He opened an old photo, long buried in the system. Black and white. Grainy. 8 boys lined up in front of a wall. One of them, small, quiet, had a dark look in his eyes. And Caleb remembered. Not the face, not exactly. But the silence. The drawing of dead birds. The way he always sat in the corner, watching. His name wasn't Burroughs back then. It was Jacob Allen Fox. Caleb staggered out of the archives, barely breathing. He lit a cigarette with trembling hands. Fox had changed his name. Slipped through the system. Faked his death. Built a life behind masks and janitor jobs in church walls. He'd been a ghost. But now he was real. And then his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. A voice, hollow, deep, calm. You were there, too, Caleb. But you were lucky. She never picked you. Click. Mia's phone went dark at 3:12 a.m. She was gone. They filed the missing person report at 4:03 a.m. Caleb didn't wait for backup. He knew she didn't have ours. He sat in his car, staring at the trail camera photo from the shack, the one with Mia's face on the wall. The timestamp read 3:07 a.m. She was taken 5 minutes before her phone went dark. He knew what that meant. Fox had been watching them all along. He closed his eyes, trying to remember. St. Luke's Youth Center. There was a basement no one talked about. The quiet wing. No windows. Only restraints. And the one person all the boys feared. Her name was Sister Miriam. A nun with hands like leather and a voice like glass. She ran punishment detail. Not officially. Not on paper. But every kid knew, if you were sent to her, you came back different. Or didn't come back at all. Caleb had only seen her once. Fox, or Jacob, back then, had lived under her. Day and night. There was a rumor that she didn't just beat them. She taught them how to hurt others. How to do it clean. At sunrise, Caleb broke into the ruins of St. Luke's. The building had collapsed in on itself years ago, but the basement was still there. He kicked through boards and ash, into a stairwell that smelled like mold and bleach. The quiet wing hadn't been touched. Restraints still hung from the walls. Drawings in red crayon still peeled from the tile. A name scratched into the concrete, over and over, Miriam. He found a file cabinet buried under debris. Most of it burned. But one folder survived. Miriam L. Hatcher, terminated 1989. Reason, excessive corporal punishment. Possible criminal negligence. Referred to church authorities. No further action. Caleb sank to his knees. She wasn't arrested. She wasn't even investigated. She was protected. And now, someone she made was out there, hunting Mia. He stood up. And ran. The message was waiting for him on his desk. No envelope. Just a mini cassette, the kind nobody used anymore. A sticky note on top. Listen, Caleb. She still hears you. He found an old player in evidence storage. The wheels clicked. Tape rolled. Then static. Then a voice. Do you know why the bones are clean? Do you know why their hair is perfect? Because I saw her do it first. Because she taught me to keep the body pretty, even when the soul is gone. You all thought I was stupid. A dog on a leash. But I remember. Every slap. Every prayer. Every time she whispered, you will be forgotten. I didn't forget. And now, neither will you. She screamed, you know. The one before the cop girl. She screamed and screamed. But she still wore the ribbon when I was done. That's respect. Click. Caleb stared at the wall. Fox wasn't just killing. He was preserving. Each victim, a piece in some twisted shrine. A catalog of control. Of pain, masked as beauty. Forensics ID'd the latest victim. Sandra Weller, 38. Reported missing 4 days ago. Last seen at a church shelter in another county. Same program. Same connection. But here's the thing, she was alive 2 nights ago. Which meant Mia was being held. Somewhere. Caleb retraced Sandra's last steps. She had taken a bus. Arrived in town. Spoke to someone at the church. That someone? A volunteer chaplain who used a fake name. He never came back after Monday. And the security footage? Gone. They found Sandra's body in a crawl space under the church. Cold. Dressed. Eyes gone. Ribbon still braided. But under her fingernails, skin. Fresh skin. The lab was already running DNA. Caleb walked out into the night, jaw locked, hands shaking. He knew this now. Fox was getting sloppy. And that made him dangerous. The DNA came back. Skin under Sandra Weller's fingernails belonged to Jacob Allen Fox. Confirmed. The same boy from St. Luke's. The same man now calling himself John A. Burroughs. That evening, Caleb sat alone in the briefing room. No lights. No board. Just a phone. He dialed the number linked to the trap line installed in Mia's phone. It rang once. Then a text came in. No words. Just a location pin. The coordinates pointed to the outskirts, an abandoned grain silo west of town. He didn't call it in. Didn't tell Delaney. Didn't wait. He drove. Alone. The silo was massive and hollow, surrounded by dead cornfields and rusted machinery. No footprints. No lights. Just wind moaning through broken windows. Caleb stepped inside, gun drawn. His boots echoed on concrete. Then, a sound. Faint. Like a cry. He followed it down a metal staircase, into the earth. At the bottom, a rusted door. Inside, hell. It was a chamber. Crude. Made of concrete and welded metal. Chains bolted to the walls. Hooks. Buckets. A table with restraints. And in the corner, MIA. Barely conscious. Lips cracked. Hands tied. But alive. He ran to her. Caleb, she whispered. Behind. Too late. The pain hit like a truck. Something slammed into the back of his head. Lights out. He woke bound. Stripped of his weapon. On the floor. Head spinning. Fox sat across from him, calm as Sunday morning. Hair combed. Shirt clean. Knife in hand. You finally came alone, he said. Just like I hoped. Caleb growled, blood in his mouth. Fox smiled. You and me, we're the same, Caleb. She just didn't finish you the way she finished me. He leaned in closer. But I can. The knife danced in Fox's hand like it belonged there. Caleb's wrists burned against the zip tie restraints. Blood ran down his forearm. I always knew it would be you, Fox whispered. You had her silence. Her emptiness. But you hid it better. He looked over to Mia. You kept her alive longer than the others, he said. You really like her, don't you? He smiled. I wonder how much of you I can carve off before she starts begging. Caleb moved. Not out of strength, out of instinct. He drove his forehead forward, crashing it into Fox's face with a sickening crack. Fox reeled. Dropped the knife. Caleb twisted, rolling to his side. The blade landed inches from his hand. His fingers bled as he reached for it, cutting deeper against the ties. Fox recovered, lunging. Caleb kicked, hard, catching him in the ribs. He grabbed the knife. Slashed the tie. Free. Blood everywhere. They fought. Brutal. Dirty. No rules. Fox was fast, fueled by mania. Caleb was driven by rage. Steel hit skin. Flesh tore. Bone cracked. In the chaos, Mia screamed. She had gotten her hand loose. She threw a chain. It hit Fox in the neck. He turned. Just for a second. That was all Caleb needed. He drove the knife deep, once. Twice. Fox staggered back. And smiled. You became her. Then he collapsed. Caleb fell to his knees, gasping. Mia pulled herself free, crawled to him. Both bleeding. Broken. But breathing. They sat there. Surrounded by blood and silence. The monster was dead. But he left part of himself behind. It took them 3 hours to crawl back to the surface. The road was empty. Caleb flagged down a trucker with blood in his hair and rage in his eyes. The silo was sealed. SWAT swarmed the next day. Forensics pulled everything: chains, tools, hair samples, teeth. 7 confirmed victims. 2 survivors. 1 monster. Fox's name hit the news like wildfire. From foster care to killer, the janitor who buried women like bones. Podcasts, headlines, talk shows. They called Caleb a hero. Mia, a miracle. The story had an ending. But not the kind that heals. 3 weeks later, Caleb stood in front of his brother's grave. Smoke in one hand. Case file in the other. Inside the file, the last page of Fox's psychiatric evaluation. One line underlined in red. Subject believes pain is the only permanent connection between people. He lit the page on fire. Watched it curl, blacken, vanish. Mia returned to duty. But she didn't smile anymore. She kept her hair short now. No more braids. No more ribbons. At night, sometimes, she wakes up choking. Caleb sits by the window with a gun in his lap. Waiting. Just in case. In the locker at the evidence room, one thing remains. A photo. Taped to the inside wall. 5 women. Eyes gone. Hair perfect. And behind them, scratched faintly in ink. She taught me to love them.